Happy Halloween.
Hi, happy Halloween.
I love that you all wore costumes like I did. And I just want to say publicly, I am in the hot dog costume for the 7th year in a row because I'm going to miss trick-or-treating with my kids tonight. I live in Minneapolis and have a long route home. So you're my Halloween party. So thank you for coming to my Halloween party. I really appreciate it. So I talk about this word gravitas a lot in my work, and it has become a very fun game. If any of you saw the poll on this, it's become a very fun game for me to ask you all what this means. And thank you for the 30-something people who already answered this. Is anybody willing to offer up what this word actually means to you?
Presents.
Presence. I love that. Anyone else? Have you ever heard it before? Yeah. You call it chutzpah. That's great. Can you think of somebody who has chutzpah? Yeah. Tiana, can you think of somebody who has presence?
You.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Does anybody else have another definition for it?
Grounding.
Grounding. Wow. Yeah. Do you know somebody who carries that?
All of us carry that within.
Oh, man.
Presents.
Oh, you are the best person in the audience. She said all of us carry it within us. We do. And I mean this when I say this talk is literal. Gravitas is for everyone. And you all have different definitions of this, and that's okay because it is an ancient word. It's an ancient virtue. It came to us from the Romans. This is the definition in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Raise your hand if you connect with that. You're not going to see this hot dog raising her hand. That's garbage. Okay, so if this ancient virtue, doesn't that sound nice? It's an ancient virtue to have gravitas, and you all thought of a couple people you know who have it. But you don't connect with the actual definition in the dictionary. Where does that leave you?
Needing a new dictionary.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, let's upgrade our dictionary. Yeah.
It leaves me in room LL21E on a Thursday morning with you.
Yes, it does. Here we are in this room on the last moment of Verge. Well, where this leaves me is I want to honor that it is part of my subconscious belief that that's fundamentally off limits for me. And I want to actually, if we can, I want to extort this a little bit, that male in parentheses. You know, maybe in the time of the Romans, only men could be leaders. I don't know. I wasn't alive then. But I want to honor that this is about more than that, because that's not me. Do any of you in this room connect with that? Does that seem real? Oh, hell yeah. Of course you do. Does anybody honestly think about this? And I want you to kind of examine your self-limiting beliefs, the stuff that's automatic, the stuff you heard when you were in 4th grade. If that's gravitas, how are you going to get it? And I want to honor what this actually means. And I'm sorry to say this phrase, I hate saying this phrase, but we have to talk about imposter syndrome for a second. Imposter syndrome was fabricated by that guy's homies because there's a lot of us who aren't that. And when we talk about imposter syndrome, there's 7 things that we're talking about here. And if you don't have all 7, you don't have it. I guarantee that nobody in this room has all 7 of these. Everybody feel sad? Yeah? I feel pretty sad looking at that. So when we talk about imposter syndrome, if you haven't watched Reshma Swajani's 2022 commencement speech at Smith College yet, it is my favorite commencement speech of all time. And she debunks all of this stuff. And I'm going to summarize it and just say, imposter syndrome was fabricated because there are a lot more of us than them. And that system meant that we fight ourselves. They don't even have to put any energy into it. We hold ourselves back. So I want you to hold this in your mind as we're talking through this stuff. Why is gravitas important? Yes?
Because it gets people in this room and a block. We just used it. Thank you.
That's amazing.
I felt emboldened.
That's amazing. Gravitas got you into this room. I love that. Can you think of an example or place or time, a meeting, a certain client, a coworker, a family member, where it would be nice to have more presence, where it would be nice to have more chutzpah, where it'd be nice to feel grounded? Does everybody have a situation you can think of? Yeah. Is anybody struggling to find one? Do you need help? You need some help?
Yeah.
So what's a place in your life where it would be really nice if you could be more grounded and more present and maybe get better results?
I can think of two. I mean, one is in my so-called day job, and the other is when I'm visiting my mother over Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanksgiving is around the corner. Thank you for that reminder. So visiting family over holidays, in your day job. Are any of you trying to do something really important that might like elevate the human experience on this planet? Yeah, all of you. Thank you. Wouldn't it be amazing to be able to do that bigger and better and enroll more easily and move through barriers more effectively and feel better at the end of the day? That's what I'm talking about. That's why Gravitas matters to me. The situations that you brought up, and hopefully the ones that you all had in your mind, I bet you anything you put those in the category of hard things. Yeah? Hello? Oh. So when you put something in the category of hard thing, what do you have to do to prepare to engage in it? You have to psych yourself up. That's right. It takes some energy to do that, doesn't it? What else do you have to do to prepare to engage in a hard thing? Yeah, does that first step feel good or bad? It's rough sometimes. The first one is a rough one. I don't know about you, but after I'm done with a hard thing, I need a frickin' treat. Right? So let's talk about who you are when you're approaching a hard thing, when you're psyching yourself up, when you're being brave to take the first step, when you're doing a hard thing, when it's draining you. I'm going to throw this out there. You're in stress mode. And stress mode is a big umbrella. There's a lot of things that fit under that. So feelings that you might experience in stress mode are things like shame and guilt, anger, frustration, apathy. I can't believe this is happening again, moments. Right? So when you're in stress mode, you have categorized what you're doing as a hard thing. Remember the marble Roman god guy? How often do you think that guy is stressed out? I mean, he's a statue, but come on. So what we're talking about here for the rest of this is, I want you, while we're going through this, to categorize in your brain, where are you showing up in stress mode? Because that is an amazing opportunity to cultivate gravitas. So this is my definition. I don't like the Merriam-Webster dictionary. In fact, I didn't get a better dictionary. I just threw it away, and I made up my own definition. So my definition of being in gravitas is the ability to be very comfortable while being in the present moment, in your body, feeling safe, and that you belong. Isn't that a good upgrade? Does it feel a little more accessible now? I promise you in about 20 minutes, it's going to feel real accessible. But if we're talking about those things that you've categorized as hard things, if you can imagine showing up this way, what might be different? What would change about the anxiety? Yeah. You wouldn't feel like running. And I want to honor that running is a stress response. That is the gift of all of our ancestors that kept us here. If you're in a thing and you really want to get out of there, you are definitely in stress. If you are in a thing and you really think you might want to punch the person across the table from you, you are in stress. If you get frozen, you are in stress. If you start being overly kind and you drop your own boundaries and you try to placate that person, you are in stress. That's called fawn, right? So how did I do this? I'm going to tell you some stories about my life. I'm going to tell you how I got here, and I'm telling you with the intent of inspiring you to do this in your own life. So the first one I put up there, or the first one I'm going to talk about, is feeling safe. Do you want to take a picture of that? I'll help you out, buddy. Is to cultivate feeling safe. And I want you to know that you have a choice about this. Bring up a moment, if you can, flip through the slideshow of your life, find a time when you did not feel safe. You got one? Now, use your incredible ability of metacognition to think about your thoughts. You're all doing it right now. Good job. What might have needed to change for you to feel better? Get really curious. You probably had a reaction that was kind of automatic. I'm sure you didn't think about your reaction. That's not a thing. But you're in the moment now where you can have metacognition. How might it have been nice to have some different thoughts that might have cultivated something that was an upgrade from feeling scared or threatened or afraid? Okay? Keep that in mind as we talk through this because, look at that. I got off track. I do that. Let's pop to this for a second. No, fuck it, we'll just keep going. So in that moment of stress, in that moment of not feeling safe, you were in your fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, your survival mode. And if any of you have ever had an opportunity to observe someone you know or someone on a stage, or maybe possibly at this conference you were in a talk where the person who was talking was feeling anxiety and stress and maybe wanted to get out of there, go back to that moment. Can you remember what they were talking about? Yeah. Wow. She said most of the people blame themselves in stress mode. Thank you for that gift of insight. The person you thought of, or the speaker who maybe you saw, were they maybe really making it hard for themselves? Is that what you meant? Yeah. They were kind of like going for a hike in the mountains and decided they'd throw on 4 or 5 backpacks. Yeah. So when you see someone in stress mode, it's a little easier to see somebody else doing it. Can you imagine how it might have been easier for that person? So the person who you observed who was kind of making it harder for themselves, as an observer, is it a little easier to see how they might have maybe made it easier for themselves?
Yeah, I think it's easy to observe me to them, but it's not easy for them to see what they are doing.
Thank you. That is amazing. It's easier to see it in other people, isn't it? Okay. So when you are in it, it's really hard to see and observe when you are in it, but it's really easy to see in other people. So objectively, if you can, how might that person get better results? Would it be worth it for that person to do maybe something to help them feel better so they could get better results, a better outcome, a better conversation, closing the deal, whatever it is? Did you have a share? No. Yeah.
Showing them and making them feel their love and listen to.
This is the best audience ever. So showing them that they are loved and helping them feel better and coming out of stress. Isn't it easy to help someone else do that? It's so easy to give that gift, isn't it?
My husband does that with me every time. He sees me in stress and says, your eyes are everywhere. You are stressed.
You have the best husband ever.
And no, like, you're great. You're amazing. And he just listened to me for a while and then.
Will you let your husband know that we all adore him? So it's so easy to do this for someone else, especially if it's a loved one, right? What we're going to do today is you're going to turn that inward. Is it hard to give yourself that kind of attention? Yeah, I'm with you. You got to work at it. It's not automatic. It's hard to see, and it's hard to turn that beam inward. So how I cultivated this in my life, here's the stories. When I was 11, we moved out into the country in rural Wisconsin. It's very, very dark at night in rural Wisconsin. And we moved inside of a commercial orchard. It wasn't our orchard, but it was all around our house. And 2 years later at 13, it occurred to me, if I just stayed up late enough, I could leave the house and no one would know. So I did. And I was 13 in 1990, and there were no cell phones, and I didn't bring a flashlight, and it was summer, so I was barefoot, obviously. I grew up barefoot and feral, and I just wandered and I explored. And the first time I did this, and the first time I thought about doing it, I had been told some things about the bluffs around our house and the predators that lived there. There are bobcats there. I had heard some really horrible stories that were intended to scare me by the adults in my life. And leaving the house barefoot at night, before cell phones existed, was a little bit like that. Did you catch that? Oh, don't do it. But there was something pulling me forward. I had to know. I had to know if that was true or not. So as I walked barefoot across the wooden deck, across the gravel driveway, across the dewy grass, onto the path, into the orchard, and my eyes acclimated to it, I was exposed to an entire realm of wonder. I saw things in a way I've never seen them before. You know how at night things look different? At night in rural Wisconsin in 1990, holy shit, do they look different. And I was free. What did you do when you were 13 to feel free? This is what I did. And I realized after about 2 minutes that the bobcats didn't want anything to do with me, and that there was wonder and delight and awe out there. And nighttime felt like this. Do you see how I made the choice to feel safe? I decided to say, I've heard all of these things from my loved ones, and I'm going to gather some better data. And I did this, I think probably until I moved out of my house. I did this for probably 5 years. And I told my dad about it about 2 years ago, and he's like, you did what? He didn't know. It was just this thing of delight that I did on my own. And I grew and I learned. And I understood that these things that we are told we can't do. Do you remember the marble Roman god guy? We can. We totally can. So that's safe. You can decide that you're safe. I want you to find a way in your own life to remember that you've already done this. You have all already done this. And I'm going to triple dog dare you to take it up a notch and find a bigger thing to feel more safe about. Let's talk about belonging. Can you all find, just kidding. Let's talk about wholeness. Wholeness is an interesting one for me. When I was 4 years old in 1981, I asked my mom to please stop calling me Laura. That's my birth name. And she said, why, honey? And I said, I don't like it. It's a girl's name. I don't want it. And she was like, tell me more about that. I was like, I don't want it. She said, well, what would you like us to call you? And I said, well, what would you have called me if I was a boy? And she said, well, we were going to name you Michael. And I was like, cool, call me Michael. And she was like, I'm not disparaging my mother. It was 1981 in rural Wisconsin. She was doing the best that she could. And she said, that's not safe. You're going to get hurt. Don't talk about that outside of this house. You can be whoever you want within the walls of this house, but do not, no, get down. I was 4. And so what that taught me was that who I am, that instinct of who I am, that innate part that is always there, that will always be there, is broken. It's fractured. There's part of me that sucks for the rest of the world. And it's my job to understand if telling you that story might freak you out. And I spent 4 decades doing that. That's a lot of neural pathway. And when you're 4, you don't have a filter. You just absorb the beliefs of the humans around you. That's how your brain works. You don't have a filter till you're 7, by the way. It's a long time to develop neural pathways. So I don't know if you've seen maps like this. These are maps of anti-transgender legislation. And this is 2 years old, I think. I think this is 2022. It's probably more brown or whatever. And so I read the news just like you all do. And I saw all of this and I heard of stories of people getting hurt and murdered. And it reinforced this belief. It found more data for me that I was broken. There was part of me that didn't belong, that I was not whole. And the effect that that had on me living in Minnesota, which is a sanctuary state, was I started having thoughts like, oh, fuck, I can't fly. What if I plan a flight and I have a layover in California and it gets diverted and I end up in Utah? You know the scanny deals? The scanny things in the airport? Fuck, they're gonna see my body. I can't go through the scanny thing. I probably shouldn't travel. And this had a huge impact on my life. I spent a week in Toronto trying to figure out if I was going to try to be a Canadian. This is an extreme example. You have all heard messages about how you are not whole. You remember the marble Roman god guy? Imposter syndrome was fabricated by people who have never heard that message. That guy has no reason to be afraid. He has no reason to be in stress. He has no reason to feel broken or less than whole. Every single one of you in this room can find an example of your life when you were told that you weren't smart enough, you weren't good enough, you didn't have the right pedigree, you weren't the right race, you weren't the right gender, you didn't have the right degree. You all can find something in this. So I want to talk to you about how I became whole, because I am, and it will be for the rest of my life. I did the work the same way I did when I was 13 that let me go out of the house in the middle of the night. I started to realize, like, I like travel. I like travel a lot. I want to move. I want to meet people I've never met before. I want to go to places I've never been. I don't want to be restricted by like this. What do I got to do? Where am I showing up in stress? Do I want to keep showing up in stress? And I did the work. And I was like, I'm going to be whole. And it occurred to me that I had not yet met a transgender person who was whole. And I thought, I can do that. And so I did. And about a year and a half ago, I had gender-affirming top surgery. Gender-affirming care is life-saving care. And I walked into the body that I had been dreaming of since I was 10. And it's amazing, and I will never go back. Yeah, snap, snap. It is that good. It is that good. And last July, I was going to get some nipples tattooed on. We got to talk about nipple tattoos. It's going to be okay. I was just going to a tattoo appointment. The artist was getting ready. They were messing with their whatevers. And this photographer rolls up. And she said to the artist, hey, you talked to my buddy, the journalist. We're doing an article in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune about BIPOC tattoo artists in the Twin Cities. Can I photograph you working? And the tattoo artist, M, said, I would need consent from my client. And I had this moment, everybody. I've done the work. I'm whole. I'm safe. I belong. We're getting to belong. I own my own company. I have no employees. I have no boss. I'm a middle-aged person who wears white skin, and I'm going to use it for good. And I thought, somebody's grandma needs to see how freaking normal this is. And I said, yeah, that's cool. And I handed her my business card, which has my first and my last and my cell phone and my email on it. And I had the best appointment. And the photos are really good. Look at my face up there. I am so grateful to have a documented moment of this. And this little guy, that was the homepage of the Strib app for at least 48 hours. This article printed in the Variety section, but that was the homepage of the Strib app for at least 48 hours. Star Tribune, excuse me. I know you don't all live in the Twin Cities. What's up? The Strib. And can I tell you what happened after I did this? People came out of the woodwork. I know one of the principals at one of the biggest schools in Minneapolis. I've worked with her, and she sent me the most beautiful text and said, thank you, and our kids' parents need to see this. People from all corners of my life, I learned who actually reads the paper every day. From all corners of my life came forward. I have met people since who I don't know who recognize me, and they ask me questions. If you have questions about being transgender, you can talk to me. I'm safe. It's okay. I'm not going to get freaked out by your questions. I know it feels like walking through a landmine. It's okay. So when I did this, I wasn't trying to showboat and end up in the newspaper. I was just getting some tattoos. But when you've done the work, you can do things that move the needle on your community. This article moved the needle on my community. And one of the photos was one of the pictures of the year. It got distributed twice. I don't know if you're aware of what the distribution area of the Minneapolis Star-Tribune is. I'm sure you all know what that is, right? It's the Twin Cities, which is very, very blue. It's the entire state of Minnesota, which is very, very purple. It's a little bit of North and South Dakota. It's a little bit of Iowa, and it's a little bit of Western Wisconsin. It's pretty rural. And that's my real name. I bet if you try, you could find my home address if you did that. I never think about that. It's not on my radar. I was as safe and whole and belonging in that moment as I am right now. Where would you benefit in your life from a little bit of this? I want you to find a real moment right now. Write it down, put it in your phone, log it in your memory. Where in your life are you not doing something you really want to do? Because somebody told you that you were broken, or not good enough, or didn't have the right pedigree, or you didn't belong. Or maybe you told yourself that. This is your unsolicited homework. I know you didn't sign up for homework, but I need you to find a real place in your life where you could get better results. End that awful cyclical argument that you end up in. I know you all have one. Get that investor to say yes. Enroll the partner. What is it? Find it. If anybody wants to be really brave and say it out loud, if you say it out loud, it's more likely to happen. Where can you use this in your life? Yes, ma'am.
Work with my body.
Work with your body and self-acceptance. That is world class. I want that for everyone in this room. For the record, the fact that my 45-year-old aging, topless body was just on the screen with all of you doesn't even register on my brain anymore because I've done that work. I'm not gonna, but I would totally take my shirt off in this room. So let's talk about belonging. Can you think of a place in your life where you do not belong? Can you find one? I know this is a gross one. You got it? Anybody need help? Okay, on the other side of that coin, can you find a place in your life where it's really easy to belong? This is a good one. I hope you all got one right away. Hold the two in comparison to each other. What's different? Anybody willing to volunteer? What does it feel like when you belong? Or maybe the better question is, how do you show up? Which version of you shows up? Relaxed. So relaxed sometimes is like the Garden Gate. What's past relaxed? Who do you get to be beyond that? Authentic. Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
The term creativity on fire.
Thank you. Creativity on fire. Yeah. Is anybody... The authenticity, the relaxed, the creativity on fire. I like that cocktail. Could we have one of those? That sounds great. Okay. How about, yeah, go ahead. Wow. When you feel like you belong, you see other people. So that inward, I don't want to put words in your mouth, maybe that self-critic chills out a little bit and you can be more like this. That's great. When you show up with other people and you can do that thing and the creativity on fire and the authenticity and the relaxed, what kind of conversation are you having? Genuine. Yeah, if that is a work conversation for you, what kind of outcomes do you get? Meaningful. Does anybody work in a creative role? Yeah, your literal job is to be creative. If you show up open and listening, authentic with creativity on fire, what kind of work are you making? That's some good stuff. Take that place where you don't belong. How do you show up? Closed. Yeah. What else? We talked about inner critic. If you're closed, what's the inner critic doing? She might be on bad behavior. Yeah. Jake? Yeah. You're totally caging your authenticity or filtering it. Yeah, when you don't belong, yeah, go ahead. When you don't belong, you might be filtering. It might not feel very safe to let all of you out. It might not feel safe to show up in a hot dog costume in front of strangers. Right? So when that inner critic is activated and on duty, and maybe being a little mean, and maybe filtering the most lovable, best, creative, beautiful parts of you, what kind of work product are you making? It's squinchy, isn't it? I saw that. Squinchy. Yeah. How's your conversations going when you show up that way? It's totally surface. Yeah. It's totally surface. Do you want to keep living like that? Please, nobody say yes. So what's at stake here with, did you have something?
I guess when I don't belong, I realize I don't act as much as in fear as I do in anger. So there's almost like a different lens to it.
Wow, that's profound. When you feel like you don't belong, there's almost a different lens for you. Can we talk about the lens for a second? What do you think that lens might be filtering out? What's that? Tolerance. Whew. Yeah. When you're turned inward and your focus is inward on filtering and your inner critic is on bad behavior, tolerance is kind of off the table. And when tolerance goes off the table, collaboration goes off the table. When tolerance and collaboration are off the table, creativity dies. Dysfunction thrives. That is the petri dish of dysfunction. I want you to know that possibly you all thought of situations that include other people who are not in this room. You can't change them, but you can change you. Remember the thing where I thought for a minute that I wasn't going to fly because I might get detoured to wherever? I can't change the United States, but I changed me and my whole world changed. And I'm saying that with the hope of motivating you. Is anybody into the idea of cultivating this in their life? Yeah, right? What would it take? I want to honor, Jake, you got something?
Yeah, I think what you said earlier about becoming safe, you had to storm through fear to get there. You had to be willing to be scared to actually feel safe.
So Jake just said in order to get through fear, or to get to safe, I had to be willing to storm through fear. Yeah, does anybody, when we talk about storming through fear, does anybody want to volunteer for that? That's a little squinchy too. It doesn't feel like something you want to sign up for, right? So I want to throw a little bit of nuance on top of this. What I was doing when I was 13, I wasn't really that scared. I was curious. I'd been taught to be scared. That first step that I took, I had to get curious before my foot moved. So when you're thinking of something that is causing you to feel afraid, and we could swap out afraid for guilty or in shame or angry or frustrated. I think these are all kind of in the same category. Before you take the literal first step, you got to get curious. And the curiosity questions are they're open-ended things. This amazing thing happens in your frontal lobe when you ask an open-ended question. Your frontal lobe has connections to every part of your brain, and when you ask it an open-ended question, it queries the whole database very quickly. And so when you find a moment where you're feeling afraid or frustrated or ashamed or embarrassed or that you don't belong, and you say, what would it be like to belong? It's your frontal lobe that's answering that question for you. It likes those questions. It lights up when you do that. So open-ended frontal lobe kind of questions are, What would it be like to get better outcomes? What would it be like to feel better at the end of the day? What would it be like to show up with love? What would it be like to have an open heart? What would it be like to honor that I love the skin I live in? And it can even be things like, what would it be like to finally close that round? When you do that, you're waking up curiosity, and when you wake up curiosity, you're not in fear. You can't be in fear and curiosity at the same time. You're waking up the part of your brain that allows you to be creative, that allows you to feel a little bit safer before you literally take that first step or say that thing in a meeting, right? There's a part of this that we don't have time to get to today that I do with all of my clients, and that what I'm talking to you about is the theory of how to do this. And I hope all of you are asking you, does anybody want to raise their hand and say, but Lori, but how? But how? And we don't have time to go into it today, but you practice. You practice. If I handed you a flute today, unless there's a flautist in the room, would you be a flautist if I handed you a flute today? No, it would sound like garbage, right? You have to practice. And one of the things I take people through is how to mentally rehearse your future so that when the opportunity arrives, you're ready for it. That moment in the tattoo parlor in Minneapolis, I had rehearsed not that moment, I didn't see that coming, but I had rehearsed moments like that. And so I was ready when the tattoo artist was like, I need consent. It was very comfortable to answer that. I was not in fear at the point when I answered that. So this thing that you've picked in your life, if you categorize it as a hard thing, as a scary thing, as a thing that you need to muster strength for, I solemnly swear to you, you're not going to change it. When I ask what would it take to soften that thing into a curiosity? A learning moment. What if that hard thing was a learning moment? Can we upgrade that to opportunity? What if it's an opportunity? What if that hard thing that maybe you avoid or you charge into with anger and closed gates can be a little bit more peaceful? So things that soften hard things into approachable things. Write this down. Curiosity, open-ended questions, practicing it ahead of time. Metacognition, the ability to think about what you're thinking about. Can you be an objective observer the way it's so easy to be with a loved one? And if you want to swap a loved one in for your part in that play, how would I treat the world's best husband if he was struggling? What would I say to him? Isn't it easier to swap him into your work situation? Allow that to cultivate curiosity. Now, here's the key. The formula for changing this, we've been talking ad nauseum about step one, recognizing it. Finding those hard things in your life, the places where you don't feel safe, where you don't feel whole, where you don't belong. Now that you've found a couple of them, it's probably going to be easier to catch it when it's happening. You're going to have a chance to do that thing again. You might be able to convert it into an opportunity or a learning moment. When you catch it the next time it happens, step one, big old pat on the back. It is hard to catch. Step two, you have to resource yourself. And I want to teach you all a tool here, which is going to be a little hard to do holding the microphone, but I'm going to do my best. I want to teach you all a breathing tool that move you from stress mode into creative mode, that will move you from fight, flight into, oh, I can use my brain again. I'm just going to have to put the microphone down. Hold one hand up. Take the finger of the other hand. Put it in your palm. You don't have to do big, weird yoga breaths. Just breathe. Inhale up your thumb. Exhale down to your palm. Inhale to your index finger. Exhale to your palm. On the next one, inhale, I am safe. Exhale, I am warm. I am safe. I am warm. Rest your hands so that you can actually relax. I am safe. I am warm. Keep doing this in your lap. You can do this on Zoom and nobody knows. I am safe. I am warm. And I want you to go around your hand until you feel better. Keep going. I'm going to watch. I'm going to make sure you're all doing it. As you do this, I want you to know that in the moment that you've caught something that you're ready to be done with, or you're ready to change, or you're ready to soften and do an easier thing, and you choose to resource yourself, that neurochemical that was making you feel stressed or angry or ashamed or that you didn't belong, in 90 seconds it will be inactive in your bloodstream. That's half a song. You can trace your hand for half a song. Step 1, catch it. Step 2, resource yourself. If that breath sucks, go find your own breath. Do some breath work. Now step 3 is where you get to play. If you've practiced who you're ready to be, it's going to be easier to pick something new, a new thought, a new way of speaking, a new way of listening, a new way of feeling. Even if you haven't practiced, that's an opportunity to try something new. Pick the upgrade. So that thing that I asked you to think about, that hard thing where it would be amazing to have more gravitas and get better results, in your brain right now or on your phone or in your notebook, what's the upgraded version of you in that moment? Think about thoughts that you could have that would lead to an upgraded outcome, feelings that you could have where you'd feel better at the end of the day if you felt a lot of that during the day, things you could say, actions you could take, ways that you could be. How do you activate open listening? That's the upgrade I want you to choose. Does this make sense? Where are you going to use this? If you say it out loud, it's more likely to happen. Yeah. Parenting. Oh! Do you have the specific moment in your brain? Is there more than one? So what motivates you to make that change? What's the motivation at the end? When the change is done, what's different about you? What's true about you that's different in your life and your family?
That's a broad question. The motivation is that I have a 13-year-old that I want to bring into adulthood with strong mental health.
Yeah, that's a good reward. To bring a tween into adulthood with strong mental health. Is that worth fighting for? Yeah. Isn't it easier to do for someone else? It is easier to do for someone else. There's a reason my children are on the back of my phone like this, like it was 1984. It's easier to do it for them. Yeah, so when you pick an outcome that really matters to you, it helps motivate you to do it, because when you catch it and you choose to resource yourself, it's very simple what I just trained you to do. The breath thing, you don't need a second round to remember that one. That's easy. It's actually not that easy to do over and over again. 3 steps is simple. Catch it, resource yourself, upgrade. I'll write that down. Catch it, resource yourself, upgrade. It's not easy. Because when you decide to make a change and you actually hit it really hard, and you do it and you mean it, and you get a different outcome, it feels kind of amazing, right? Well, the second you do that and you mean it and you get a different outcome, your body freaks out on you. And it's like, that's not who we are. What are you doing? And it starts putting thoughts in your mind of like, well, actually, I'll start tomorrow. I'll start at next Wednesday's staff meeting because this Wednesday doesn't feel quite right. It's October still, so I'll start November. It might just give you a weird, like, my kid has never seen me be like this before, and now he's freaking out, and that's uncomfortable, so I'm going to stop. I'm going to do the known. If you take this on and you take this seriously, I actually want you to tell me if you do this, and I want you to tell me how it's going, please. I want you to know that the minute you hit it hard and that you're serious about it, it's going to get hard. Because we evolved as a species to avoid the unknown. We evolved to crave predictable, known, survivable environments. Your people and my people were elite, extreme survivalists. And they did that by being in places where they knew what would happen. So your bodies crave what they know. So I'm telling you this because I want you to be prepared. I want you to nail that meeting. I want you to get better at pitching. I want you to get that job because you aced the interview. I want you to be a better parent. I want you to have the parenting outcomes that you design, that you dream of. And if you make a big change, I just want you to be ready. Your body will come for you. And it's worth it. Can you all see how it's worth it? Pick something real in your own life that's worth doing this change for. Does anybody have a hard time finding something in their actual life? Anybody else want to say one out loud? I promise you it'll come true faster if you say it out loud. You don't even know these people.
Moving somewhere that's much calmer for my nervous system.
Moving somewhere that's calmer for your nervous system. What makes that worth it? Moving's a big deal. What makes that worth it?
Oh, it's a pain in the ass, and it's I'm worth it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. People around me are worth it because then I show up in that creativity fire, better, relaxed, authentic.
Isn't it easier to do it for other people?
I help people move, and then I can't open a box to clear out crap out of my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
If your motivation is somebody else, just lean into that. It's just easier. One of the hardest things to do is decide that you are worth it. But that's next level. Let it be for the people you love first and find success in that. And when you choose you, watch out. Do you know that all of you are the only humans on this planet of over 8 billion people who can choose yourself every single time? You're the only one. Nobody else is going to do that for you. And I solemnly swear to you that finding more self-love for your own beautiful heart is the gateway to everything you are dreaming of. I didn't put self-love in this definition, but it took a lot of self-love to be able to do that. We got about 10 minutes left here. And that is the content I wanted to walk you through. I'm going to leave this up there because I have a class starting in 10 days where I walk you through how to actually do this. And I would love to have you all in it. You got a lot of the theory. You got a tool. You understand what's at stake. But I didn't have time in an hour to actually go through the how. And the how is everything. This is actually very hard to do on your own because your body fights you. And around the time I started walking out into the bluffs around my house, around 1990, I started to get really curious about humans make transformation. I've logged 34 years in this field. Pick the upgrade. Does anybody have a burning share, a connection? Did anybody learn anything new that's profound for them?
I was actually more curious. Sometimes what we need is patience.
Let's talk about patience.
Yeah, patience.
What does that mean for you, patience?
Means maybe reacting your second thought, not with your first thought.
Ooh.
Step back, right?
So he said maybe reacting with your second thought instead of your first thought, taking a step back. That's world class. So when we talk about instincts, you know how instincts feel like they just come out of nowhere? Maybe that's the definition of an instinct. It might be. It's that patience. It's choosing to allow yourself patience, to gift yourself patience, to say, what is the second thought? And do any of you like rehash things after you're done? You know, you've all got a bank of second thoughts and third thoughts and 12th thoughts. The thing that I'm talking about here is to do the work on the instincts so that those second and third and 12th thoughts have a chance to come out of your mouth and enter your heart and change your actions. So when we're talking about patience, how do you source that? How do you all source that? It might be a little different for all of you. How do you source it? You brought it up. Maybe that's the question. Yeah.
Really, it's a different journey from what I got here today. It's about choosing myself. I've been doing that since 4 years now. I'm in that journey. Started on a harsh scale. It started through a grief of losing a loved one in life. That kind of, there was a moment where either I could have succumbed to it or I could have grown. And I chose the curiosity, as you said that time. What if I do some of the next? But then what stood up for me is I was being curious, but then I was being hard on myself because then I wanted to improve myself to be better version. At the same time, because I was having that, I wouldn't use the word fight, but I was having that thing where I was bridging that thing of being better so that I don't feel that I'm loved less. I'm feeling that, it's about my father. So bridging that gap in between, and I was like, yeah, I want to connect with him on the spiritual level right now. Physical journey is ended, but then I have to be so much better to be on that level to connect. And then I was being hard on myself, and today I realized so much that
That is profound. I'm going to do my best to not disrespect it and summarize it. You were saying that you had a moment of family loss 4 years ago when you had to make a choice. And part of what you chose was you were ready to connect with your father on a spiritual level and to choose you and to be better. And there's so much content in what you just shared. I want to thank you for that. And the one thing I would love to pull forward is you've probably all had a moment in your life where you changed because an event happened. Maybe an awful event happened where you didn't have a choice. Can you all find one of those? I can find like 14 if anybody needs one. And if you think about in that moment the change that you made, you did it. You were motivated to do it. You wanted it, right? And a lot of times when we're forced to change, we kind of have to. So I want you all to know that we are all capable of changing in times of urgent need or emergency, or in times of wellness. You have all the biology and neurology to do this in a time of stress or in a time of abundance. You don't have to wait for the hard thing. A pretty significant population of my clients hires me when they've had a terrible doctor's visit. They have to change. And we do what we can do, and they make a lot of progress, and their spouses are like, what the hell are you doing with Lori? And it's good, and we like that. But if you wait that long, things are hard. You don't have to wait that long. A huge chunk of the people who hire me do it because something isn't going quite the way they want it to. You don't have to wait for the doctor's visit or the divorce. We can change in times when we have to and when we're well. And if you choose to change when you're well, which I think that's what I heard you say you heard today, thank you for that. You're much better resourced. You can go farther. You can spend more moments in curiosity and enjoy it more. But just like I asked about what's your motivation, you do need that carrot to help keep you on track because your body won't want you to stay on track. So if you've thought of something you want to change, and I hope none of you are in emergency mode, and if you are, I'm going to stay afterwards and we can talk. If you found a thing you want to change and you're not in emergency mode, I want you to find the motivation, and I want you to dig deep. Find the thing that makes you cry. Find the thing that is worth it. Find the thing that you would go to the mat for over and over and over again, because if you have that in your mind and allow that to be the reward that pulls you forward or the experience you're ready to have, you're more likely to stick with this. So your big climate dream, your family, yourself, your community, whatever it is, remind yourself of that thing that when I show up different, when I show up with Gravitas, when I turn a hard thing into a curious thing, I'm going to get different results. And it's worth it for my family or my community or my friends or myself. I'm having a little bit of a love affair with this audience right now, and I just needed to get that out of my mouth. You guys are amazing. Thank you for showing up today. Thank you for participating. I am in my dream right now, hot dog and all. And I'm so glad that you showed up for it. Thank you. I love you all too. And if anybody wants to stay, I do have time. I have a really late flight today.